Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, November 20th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News will be with us to talk about Trump's Gaza partition plan. And later in the show, Cameron Kasky, candidate for the New York 12th Congressional District, will join us. Also on the program, Trump signs the Epstein bill after trying to kill it for months, meaning the DOJ has 30 days to release these documents, and Bondi needs to find a way to help Trump with his cover-up without risking future prosecution. In the latest Fox News poll, Trump's approval rating craters to its lowest since October 2017, and his numbers on the economy are at their lowest ever. The delayed September jobs report was finally released, showing growth in initial numbers, but remember all those downward revisions in the previous months? This comes as the BLS refuses to release the October jobs report, which means it's probably awesome, right? Israel keeps violating the ceasefire, killing at least 28 Palestinians overnight. Coincidentally, after the UN sanctions Trump's private partition plan. And new reporting shows Mike Huckabee met with Jonathan Pollard at the Israeli embassy in July, who, if you don't know, is an American who spent decades in prison for spying on behalf of Israel. There are those guys, turns out.
Apparently, basically like a storage unit worth of files.
A bathroom worth of files? We found common cause. 25 people were killed in a Russian strike on an apartment building in western Ukraine as Trump tries to impose his peace plan with discontent from both sides. A federal judge sides with Meta in an antitrust suit started under Lena Khan, saying that its acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp were legally permissible.
Insane.
Or it was basically like, I forget, I need to read the full opinion, but it was like, it's already it happened too long ago.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Facts on the ground. Mayor-elect Mamdani will meet with Trump at the White House tomorrow. That'll be interesting. And lastly, the House Ethics Committee has launched an investigation into Republican Corey Mills, who's accused of domestic violence, among other things. All this and more on today's Majority Report, or should I say, a Majority Report. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday. Hello, Matt. Hello, Brian. Hello, friends out there. We've got a great show for you today. Looking forward to talking to Jeremy in just a second, so let's just get started now here on, the economy is the major driver right now of Donald Trump's approval rating being so dismal, and we'll show you that Fox News poll in a bit, but as I headlined, we got the news that the government's October jobs report won't be published due to the government shutdown, and the September numbers that they just released were stronger than expected because weakness was expected, but there will likely be downward revisions as there were for the numbers over the summer. The economy's just not doing well right now, and it's not good politics to constantly be denying it. I mean, we saw a less extreme version of this in the 2024 race where the Harris campaign did not do enough, I would say, to distance itself from the Biden administration's policies on this because they were toxic, because cost of living was a major, major problem for people. But the way Trump is doing this, getting agitated because there's the word affordability shows up on his teleprompter and then riffing about it in a joke as a billionaire rich guy building his Gilded Age style ballroom. Yeah, I'm not sure the politics of this are great.
Great job. We're also making incredible strides to make America affordable again. That's a new word that they're using. Affordability, they talk. They had the worst inflation in history. They had the highest prices in history. The country was going to hell. The only thing that we're going up in is our stock market, okay? The only price that we really have, I mean, we're bringing prices down, but they came up with a new word, affordability. And they look at we were all about affordability, and everyone assumes that that meant that, no, their prices were high.
Wait, he got a nail on, just, I know he's stream of consciousness, but you gotta have a nugget if you're gonna work around that. This CBS compiled some of these stats here. We'll just go like briefly through these 5 categories. Half of Americans say it's harder to afford groceries today than it was a year ago. You can see that they cite there that Axios and Harris poll, and you see the prices going up for all food on this chart. 3/4 of Americans, this is the next piece. No, this is the right one. Say housing has grown more unaffordable in their communities. There it is. Per YouGov. 3/4 of Americans say housing has grown more unaffordable in their communities in recent years.
Which, by the way, also, like, he acts like he wasn't already president, and this stuff wasn't worsening between like 2016 and 2021.
Right.
One word, Biden.
And 2024 here, childcare. This is, I mean, but to the point of like the greedflation and what the pandemic did and how already wealthy interests took advantage. In 2024, the average annual cost of care for one child around the U.S. topped $1,300, or $13,000, dollars, up 30% from 2020. That's crazy.
That's huge.
Huge. So those are just kind of 3 pieces there. Healthcare, of course, the premiums are skyrocketing due to the Republicans.
And that's just a policy decision.
Yeah. To throw more people into desperation. And so own it. But Trump's ego feels like, he can control the narrative in any situation, and he can bully his way out of every situation. And here's another instance of this. So he knows the economy is slowing, and he is once again back thrashing about because he wants to fire the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, but he is not legally allowed to do so. He's currently being tied up in the courts trying to fire Lisa Cook, and that's not working. And now he's literally just like bullying his Treasury Secretary and threatening to fire Bessent in public like this is a boardroom scene on The Apprentice. He wants interest rates to come down, okay? But if he does not release these October jobs numbers, the Fed needs that information to make its determinations about interest rates. Like, you can't be concealing important information on the economy and then have your cake and eat it too. But here he is, just like, if you Scott Bessent can't bully Jerome Powell into doing what I want, then I will fire you because I can't fire Jerome Powell.
Rates are down despite the Fed. Scott, you got to work in this guy. He's got some real mental problems. No, there's something wrong with him. It's just sweet. I'll be honest. I'd love to fire his ass. He should be fired. Guy's grossly incompetent. And he should be sued for spending $4 billion to build a little building. I'm building a ballroom that's going to cost a tiny fraction of that, and it's bigger than the whole thing put together. You got to work on him, Scott. The only thing Scott's blowing it on is the Fed. Because the Fed, the rates are too high, Scott. And if you don't get it fixed fast, I'm going to fire your ass, okay? I can't tell you, Scott, sir, don't fire him. Sir, please don't fire him. He's got 3 months to go. Don't fire him. I want to get him out, Scott. Please. He's the voice of reason. You're very lucky you have him, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so I mean, he's threatening Besant there.
Did you say where he was at?
Oh, I did not. That is the
U.S. Saudi Investment Forum.
Right.
The
yes.
rulers of the world.
I saw Larry Kudlow went on Fox News last night and was saying how important this is, that he's bringing in all this Saudi investment. And I'm just like, you know that the economy is collapsing. You know this, Kudlow. But the amount that they just have to perform for this guy and for this audience is, you know, it's authoritarian.
Pardon me if I'm not rushing to be overjoyed with the Saudis taking more financial stake in America. Like, great.
I mean, this is where you have Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to exploit the, like, betrayal of the America First branding, which we all know was insincere to at the outset. But, like, Trump just is obsessed with money wherever he can get it. And the cheapest way to get it is basically from some of these despots in the Middle East. And we'll be talking to Jeremy Scahill as well about their complicity in this, in forwarding this, you know, privatized Gaza partition plan, and abandoning the Palestinians despite the fact that public opinion within their states shows that there's broad support for the Palestinian cause, but that's why the United States likes that the Middle East is so undemocratic. It's because it allows them to pay to play, and Trump is just doing it in a more nakedly self-serving way as opposed to United States imperial interests, which has basically been the line for previous presidents.
That's the thing, is like states like Russia, or I mean not Russia and China, like they're operating on very nationalistic terms. Our country is running for the individual, very powerful individuals, and they're calling it nationalism.
Yep, right. Whatever is good for Trump is good for America. That's how he operates. And he's so dumb that he can't even kind of merge the two in a way that makes sense or will actually benefit people. Like, he could benefit himself and enrich himself and still not have these kinds of numbers on the economy like this.
We have to act like if it's good for Sam Altman, it's good for all of us.
Yep. These Fox, just briefly to show you how bad it's getting for Trump. This Fox News poll that came out yesterday is just devastating. This is the worst in terms of his approval rating. That his worst performance in terms of an approval rating since October 2017. It's a 5-point drop since the poll that was taken in September. And he now has his lowest approval rating ever on the economy. Among all voters, 41% approve of the job Trump is doing, while 58% disapprove. Only once have his ratings been lower, and that was during his first term, 38 to 57% in October 2017, which I would have anticipated that it was like pandemic time or January 6th time, but 2 months ago was 46 to 54%. So that is outside the margin of error in terms of dropping. When it comes to the national economy versus personal finances, evaluations are also negative. Most say conditions are only fair or poor, 76%, and fewer than 1 in 5 think inflation is completely or mostly under control. At the end of Biden's term, voters said by a wide 30-point margin that his economic policies had done more to hurt than help their families, driven by 3/4 of Republicans saying they've been harmed. The new survey shows almost identical results as voters say by a 31-point margin that Trump's economic policies have hurt rather than helped them, driven by 3/4 of Democrats saying that they have been harmed. And by a nearly 2-to-1 margin, voters say Trump is more responsible for the current economy than Biden, 62% to 32%. Yeah, because he's president. So it's pretty hard for him to make that case. But and then on the issues, this Fox News poll asked him asked their respondents about 6 separate policy issues. The only one where he's above water is on border security at over 50%. But when it goes to immigration, he's underwater. When you're looking at his disapproval on the economy, tariffs, and healthcare, he has above 60% disapproval on that as well. The bright spot that Republicans are trying to glean from this is that his numbers aren't as bad on foreign policy, but they're still below. His approval rating is below is worse than his disapproval on that, and it's basically being buoyed by some misleading reporting about the nature of the ceasefire in Gaza, as we're seeing overnight in this genocide. Over 25 Palestinians were killed in airstrikes by Israel. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Jeremy Scahill, co-founder of Drop Site News. But first, a word from some of our sponsors here. I would like to thank OneSkin for sponsoring today's episode. If you're like me, your skin needs some extra care this time of year. Between the colder weather and the holidays fast approaching, it can feel like non-stop stress to your system, and that's why I continue to rely on OneSkin. You know how much I love the OS1 Face, the OS1 Eye, and it's been invaluable to my daily routine that delivers both powerful skincare and longevity benefits, all in just a few simple steps. I love having the packaging too for OneSkin, the OS1 Face. It's so sleek. It's really easy. I was just traveling. It was easy for me to travel with. And that the eye cream, sometimes the skin around my eyes can be really sensitive, but it's gentle on the eyes. And I know that I'm, hopefully being a little proactive about things like crow's feet. The OS1 Eye is perfect for me on that front. I was basically trying to be more preventative, take care of some sun damage that I sometimes enjoy inflicting upon myself in the summer months. And OneSkin has helped me recover a ton. At the core of OneSkin is the patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, creepiness, and loss of elasticity, all key signs of skin aging. And these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies. You just basically put it on in the morning. You can cleanse, pat your skin dry, and you apply it twice daily. The packaging is great, as I mentioned. That shell that you send that comes with the OS1 Face is reusable. And I think I'm going to be gifting this holiday season. OneSkin just also launched their limited edition holiday sets, including the Nightly Rewind gift set, which is one of those rare gifts that's both impressive and genuinely useful, providing an upgrade to anyone's nightly routine. Featuring their best-selling face moisturizer, their new peptide lip mask, and a cooling gua sha tool. Each component of the set is designed to work together as your body enters its natural nightly repair mode, helping renew skin at the cellular level for stronger, smoother, and more resilient skin. This season, don't just moisturize, support your skin at the cellular level with OneSkin. For a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using code MAJORITY at oneskin.co/majority. That's 15% off at oneskin.co/majority with code MAJORITY. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please help us and tell them the Majority Report sent you. Try OneSkin today, and we will put a link down below in the episode descriptions and at majority.fm. Get 15% off OneSkin with the code MAJORITY at www.oneskin.co/majority. This next sponsor is a sponsor that I used for years before even joining the show. Delete Me is a phenomenal service that makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time where surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. When I started in this industry, I was just... I had all my information out there, basically. I didn't know what to do on that front. At my old gig, I was recommended Delete Me, and ever since then, I've been using it for 8 or 7 years. Delete Me does all of the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Delete Me knows your privacy is worth protecting. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. And Delete Me is not just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. Thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring the Majority Report. I will often just maybe not even often, when I'm reminded, I will go check and see that Delete Me is continuing to work and catch these things, and it makes me feel a lot better about living my life on the internet. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now with a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to this website. JoinDeleteMe.com/majority and use promo code majority at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to JoinDeleteMe.com/majority and enter code majority at checkout. That's JoinDeleteMe.com/majority, code majority. Again, link down below in the video and episode descriptions. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to JoinDeleteMe.com/majority and use promo code majority at checkout. And lastly, Aura Frames. All your family wants for Christmas is you. Aura Frames is the perfect gift for that. Around the holiday season, around Hanukkah season, Christmas season, you want to basically get your family members something that speaks to your connection or your friends, especially if they live across the country, something like that. And it's really a hack for your parents and grandparents, honestly. They're always talking about, you got to call them, you're far apart, etc. Well, Aura allows you to give them a personalized gift and a frame where you can upload the photos of you and your family members without having to open the box. The frame shows all the different photos of you and your grandparents, etc. Together, and you can change them all from your phone all year long. You can personalize your gift and add a message before it arrives. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. Aura is a staple in my gift giving as well, because there's nothing that parents or grandparents or family members like more than this. It's thoughtful, and also it's just easy to use. For a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Use promo code majority at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code majority. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year, so order now before it ends. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. We'll put a link down below in the video and YouTube descriptions. Again, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames. Use promo code majority at checkout. Link down below. All right, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Jeremy Scahill. We are back, and I'm so happy to be joined by Jeremy Scahill, co-founder of Dropsite News and author of Blackwater and Dirty Wars. Jeremy's one of the best journalists working today. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Great to be back.
Of course. So let's just jump right into it, because I know we're limited with you on time. This so-called Gaza peace plan, the U.S. has already kind of helped implement this plan to split the Gaza Strip into two since the ceasefire, which Israel has, repeatedly broken. We headlined it today that dozens of Palestinians were killed overnight during this so-called ceasefire. But they drew this line. Over 50% of the territory is controlled by Israel, and then a little under 50% is controlled by Hamas. And Israel had continued to enact its genocidal violence. It would kill anyone who stepped over this invisible line into the territory that Israel controls. But now the UN has kind of given its stamp of approval on this international stabilization force, another part of this plan Trump is implementing. Just take us through how we got to this point and why the UN's rubber stamping of this is a significant escalation, I would argue, in in benefiting these kind of private shady interests in seizing territory in the Gaza Strip.
I mean, the only reason there's something that is being called a ceasefire right now in Gaza is because of a constellation of interests that involve, the Trump family business, Trump's relationship with monarchies in the Persian Gulf, primarily from the Gulf Arab countries. I think, it's symbolized by the fact that the two people that were the emissaries cutting this deal with Hamas and Israel on behalf of the Trump administration were Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, whose firm, Affinity Partners, is bankrolled by Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Steve Witkoff, another real estate guy, whose son, by the way, right before his dad goes to quote unquote negotiate this deal, is running around trying to scare up new business for the family business, in advance of this. And the fact that, Trump really, I think he didn't fundamentally understand how the Nobel Peace Prize process worked. I think he was rushing, thinking that he was going to get in just under the wire to get the Nobel Peace Prize, but also the fact that Israel was losing the war. The only thing that Israel was succeeding at doing was razing Gaza to the ground, mass murdering tens of thousands of Palestinians, burning children alive in tents, starving the population. But the fact was that you had 20 living Israeli captives that were still in Gaza, and it was becoming extremely clear that no military force was going to get those Israeli captives out. So for a combination of reasons and the fact that Israel's reputation is at a lower point than it's been in the entire 77-year history of its existence, Trump decided, okay, we're going to go and we're going to make a quote unquote deal. But none of this was actually coming from a place of genuine concern for the Palestinian people or because Trump cares about Palestine at all. So just set that context straight right there. And in a deeper sense, because of the massive unpopularity of Netanyahu and the world recognizing that this is a genocidal serial killer masquerading as a nation state, Trump in a way rescued Israel's war of annihilation agenda from itself, from Netanyahu. But to get those Israeli captives out and to get the buy-in of Trump's business partners from these Gulf Arab states, they had to agree to some form of a ceasefire. And what they were able to do was ensure that Israel was going to be in control of more than 50% of the Gaza Strip. And in fact, Israeli officials are saying openly that they're building infrastructure in that eastern part of Gaza and intend to stay there indefinitely. Now, Netanyahu,
who could have seen this coming? It just, I'm sorry, but like the idea that this wasn't an open ethnic cleansing plan is insane to me, but continue. Yeah.
Right. And, remember, too, that on February 4th, when Netanyahu came to the White House to meet with Trump, he was the first foreign leader to engage in that kind of a visit in the White House in the Trump 2.0 administration. That's when Trump, next to Netanyahu, floated this idea of a Middle East Riviera in Gaza. And, Netanyahu seemed to be taken a little bit by surprise by it because Trump didn't say we're going to give it to Israel. He said it's going to be an American, real estate project. But what Netanyahu did is he seized on what he felt was the most important thing that Trump was saying, and that is there's going to be a Gaza Strip without Palestinians. And then Netanyahu started referring to that as implementing Trump's plan when he announced that he was going to invade Gaza City, the largest city in the Gaza Strip, and try to forcibly remove 1 million Palestinians from it. So all of these things that happened, there are some minor, let's say, technical differences or disagreements between Trump and Netanyahu. But what Trump has really done is set up a situation where they're trying to rebrand Israel's agenda of annihilation against the Palestinians as the greatest peace deal in millennia. Trump said it's one of the greatest moments in the history of civilization in thousands of years. And so what you saw then was the United Nations, and this was astonishing, Emma. I went and I looked carefully. I don't believe that there's ever been an instance in the history of the United Nations where it has done what it did with this resolution. And that is that they gave an international stamp of legitimacy, which, by the way, is a fabricated fake stamp, to not a UN deployed international force, but a force whose composition has not been made public yet. And by the way, Trump is having very, very difficult time getting any nation states to agree to send troops, but we can talk about that in a moment. But what the United Nations did is endorse the deployment of a military force with the aim of totally disarming the Palestinian people. It's not about Hamas. It's not about Islamic Jihad. It's about disarming the Palestinian people. What that means is that the United Nations Security Council has endorsed a stripping of the Palestinian people of their right to self-determination, which is enshrined in international law. And it says that Israel can participate with this international force in stripping the Palestinians, who they've been committing a genocide against for more than 2 years, of any ability to defend themselves from this genocidal maniac society that is pretending to be a civilized nation state. And it's not going to be the blue helmets. It's not going to be peacekeepers. This is so important for people to understand.
Right.
What the UN said is that Trump, as the chair of this horribly named Board of Peace, is the commander of these forces, and that until the end of 2027, it can operate under the banner of legitimacy of the UN without the UN having any command, any oversight, any control whatsoever. And I suspect that most Arab states, if not every Arab state, is going to refuse to send any troops. Many of them are on the record as saying that. Egypt just put out a statement today indicating they're not interested in sending troops. They're trying to get Azerbaijan, maybe Indonesia. Let's say they get a couple of nations to send it. They're not going to be able to stand up this force unless we use the M word, mercenaries. And so I think that what we're going to be looking at here is that they're going to scramble to try to find some actual countries with flags to deploy. Maybe they'll get some, but they're going to have to, if they're going to do this, they're going to have to overwhelmingly rely on mercenary companies. My colleague Sharif Abdel Qaddous just did a story for Dropsite last night showing that UG Solutions, the mercenary company that is affiliated with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was this fake aid scheme where hundreds upon hundreds of Palestinians were killed waiting in line to get aid. That company is now recruiting for potential new deployments to 12 to 15 sites, they say, inside of Gaza. But a spokesperson for the company actually told Sharif on the record that they may also be playing a role in this international stability force. So what we're witnessing here is a neo-colonialist plan where Trump is the viceroy extraordinaire. It's been endorsed by the United Nations, endorsed by Arab countries. Russia and China declined to veto it, even though the U.S. had systematically vetoed all ceasefire resolutions up to this point. And the Palestinians continue to be murdered in increasing numbers. The Israelis aren't respecting even the terms of the ceasefire that they signed. They returned Palestinian bodies with signs of torture, organ removal. They're continuing to snatch Palestinians. So, none of this was designed to be an actual ceasefire, Emma. What this is a massive corrupt business deal, and Trump saving Israel from itself so that its war and agenda of annihilation can continue.
So so many questions here. One, in terms of the United Nations, the UN Security Council sanctioning this, essentially. There are comparisons being made here, of course, to the UN Partition Plan of 1947, which divided up Palestine into separate Jewish states and then put the Palestinians in a smaller portion of land. But of course, this is worse because, as you mentioned, these are not the blue helmets. These are not UN forces. These are likely to be private interests. And so my question there is, I guess, twofold. One, does the UN have an out in its agreeing to this if these international forces choose not to step up and it's just these mercenary companies with Trump at the helm? Is that something that they can remove their support from? And two, what does this say about the UN capitulating in this manner, or at the very least the Security Council doing so? I know it's separate from the fuller body, but when the Israeli government waged an all-out propaganda war on UNRWA and their work within the Gaza Strip, they have basically completely bent the knee to the Israeli government and, by extension, the United States by capitulating in this manner. It's absolutely astounding because the UN, and you have the special rapporteur there with her assessment of the genocide, and of course, the war on UNRWA was unconscionable. That is a deep, I think, indictment of the body right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think someday we'll know the story of the blackmailing and cajoling that went on behind the scenes, but let's not give these Arab and Islamic states that endorse this too much credit, like they would have to be blackmailed to such an extreme extent. I mean, you look at this butcher and war criminal that Trump has just welcomed into the White House, and then he's, defending the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi in front of the press and actually attacking journalists for having the audacity to ask about it, even though it was the conclusion of the CIA that Mohammed bin Salman was involved and implicated in that murder. But look, I mean, I think I just got done meeting with a wide range of Palestinian leaders from a variety of factions, both those that control armed factions and also Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And their belief on this, they're saying, look, no one is going to demilitarize or disarm the Palestinians through any kind of an agreement like this. It's a non-starter. In fact, even Palestinian leaders who ran against Hamas in elections and don't control armed forces are saying that they don't support Palestinians giving up their right to bear arms against Israel. So that's going to be a major point of contention. But I think what the medium-term agenda here is to create Bantustans within historic Palestine. Where you break up the Gaza Strip, maybe even to two separate parts, where the Israelis build so-called humanitarian safe zones in the eastern part of Gaza. They try to entice some Palestinians to come, saying, we'll feed you, we'll give you medical care. And the whole agenda there will be to keep them in a sort of smaller cage and then possibly relocate them or deport them to other countries. You have the single largest ethnic cleansing campaign since 1967 happening right now in the occupied West Bank. And then you have a bootlicking collaborationist regime in the form of Mahmoud Abbas masquerading as somehow the representative of the Palestinian people, when by some accounts his actual popularity is at single digits. Hamas remains, according to the most recent responsible polls, the single most popular political party in all of Palestine, not just Gaza. Now, people can debate that. It's for Palestinians to decide. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that if you want to actually negotiate long-term deals with the Palestinian people, you're going to have to negotiate with the actual parties and institutions that represent the will of the Palestinian people. And that's why before the Palestinians responded to Trump's plan, it wasn't just Hamas and Islamic Jihad making the decision. They met with every single political faction in Palestine. The only party that boycotted it was the party of Mahmoud Abbas, and they crafted their response. And what they said is, we can negotiate in a narrow sense an end to the genocide and the exchange of captives. But on these other issues, the existential questions about the future of Palestine, which are embedded within Trump's, colonialist plan, we have to have a democratic process to respond to it. And so that's the position of the Palestinians. But you will not find a Palestinian except Mahmoud Abbas that is going to even entertain the notion of disarmament of the Palestinian people, because to do so would be akin to a surrender. And the one thing that is true over these 77 years is that the Palestinians are not going to give up their rights, and they're not going to give up their struggle for self-determination and an independent state. If you want to get rid of Hamas and you want to get rid of Islamic Jihad, the Palestinians need to have an independent state. That's just a historical fact, and they have to have a military capable of defending itself, particularly against this serial killer that it's been mass murdering it for 77 years.
But that is the most important point there, right, Jeremy? And I know you have to run, but just the idea, why is statehood such an existential threat to the Israeli colonial project? It is because that would necessitate Palestine being able to have like actual statehood, like the capacity of a state, which would include having a military that they couldn't just call a terrorist organization.
Right. And Emma, I know you're also familiar with this history, and we don't need to go, deep into it. But if you look at the realities in apartheid South Africa, or in any other struggle where you had this sort of minority rule, or you had two sets of laws, the fact is that those are not sustainable projects. And if you were to have democratic elections in all of the territory of historic Palestine today, there would be a Palestine and not an Israel. And so the world needs to recognize that either we believe in democratic rights for all people, or you have to admit that what you support is something that is a narrow exception for Palestinians, that somehow these people don't have a right to determine their future, that they don't have a right to have a state that is reflected by a democratic process where people get to vote for their elected leaders. When the Palestinians elect the candidates the U.S. doesn't like, then it's siege, it's war, it's mass starvation. Palestine is a pluralistic society. It's a diverse society. Marwan Barghouti, who's sitting in a prison cell right now, has previously advocated for the so-called two-state solution. He's the single most popular Palestinian leader who is sitting and rotting in a prison cell right now, and neither Mahmoud Abbas nor Benjamin Netanyahu want him freed. But the fact is that if we believe in democracy, and this cuts across the political spectrum in the US, there's only one position that we can take, and that is that everyone in that entire territory, whether you want to call it the West Bank, Israel, Gaza Strip, Jerusalem, or you want to say it's historic Palestine, give them all a vote. One person, one vote, and let's see what happens, because that would be just.
Well, Jeremy, you'll be happy to know that I made this argument on Pod Save America last week. I don't know if it was as well received as maybe our audience might receive it, but you know, one democratic state, exactly right. So
what's the counter argument? I mean, I'll go watch that, but like, what's the counter argument that, oh no, actually a little bit of apartheid is okay if it means that Palestinians might actually get to choose their leaders? Like, there is no actual good argument for this. Nations don't have rights to exist. This is a totally. Why isn't there a German Democratic Republic anymore? Why are Soviet states no longer there? This is a fiction that we've been, had foisted on us. It's a total fiction.
Tell that to liberal Zionists.
Demographic changes.
Yeah, right. Well, we're banging our heads against the wall here, but thank you for your great work, Jeremy. Everybody, of course, please support Dropsite News and their essential reporting right now. And of course, check out Blackwater, Dirty Wars, and Jeremy Scahill's other books. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma. Keep up the good work.
You too. Quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Cameron Kasky, who is running in New York 12. Very crowded field, but perhaps we'll have some overlap in this conversation. Cameron's position on the genocide is a real standout here, and I'm looking forward to talking to him about it. We'll be right back after this. We are back, and we're so happy to be joined now by Cameron Kasky, candidate running for Congress in Jerry Nadler's old seat in New York 12. Cameron, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Great to be here. I've been a fan.
Yes, I know. I mean, I think we briefly met years and years ago before COVID changed everything, but I'm not sure if you remember that. I was in Nevada.
Oh, the Bernie Nevada night when everything was amazing and the world was good. And for one night, it seemed as though everything would be perfect and everybody would win. Yeah, Bernie.
100%. I won money on that trip to Vegas, too. I won money on that trip. And easy. Bernie got
I can't gamble. One of the first things they tell you when you get diagnosed with bipolar disorder is do not gamble. Gambling is not for bipolar people. So
that makes sense.
That's a good message for Emma, too.
Yeah.
I got my own issues.
I'm in a fantasy league with like a $15 buy-in, mostly because my older brother and I don't have much in common, and we don't have that much to talk about. So I was like, oh, if we do a fantasy league together, when he calls me to check in, which I love, we could just talk about the fantasy league. And I'm in last place by far. But Bernie, Nevada was such a fun night. I was 19 years old at the time. Bernie thanked me for speaking for him at the rally, and he called me Cameron Kasky. He actually, there were 4 of us from the gun violence prevention community who went out for him. Matt Deitch, Nura Abdullah, Robert Chentrup, who lost his sister at the shooting in my high school and has been working in gun violence prevention ever since, and myself. And Bernie butchered all of our names except for Nura Abdullah. And I was like, you know what? If he's going to get one of them right, God willing, it's Nura.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's very Bernie to be idiosyncratic about that, I guess. But it was an amazing night. I'm happy to talk to you here about your run because one, you obviously have been in activism, thrust into activism, really unwillingly since you and your classmates experienced the horrific Parkland shooting in 2018. And so many of you guys, of course, David Hogg and everybody I see have really taken up the mantle and have tried to use that horrific traumatic event to change the world. How do you kind of reflect on the past decade of your life, really, and where this has brought you and why you're choosing to run for Congress on the heels of that?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I'm from a generation where there are a lot of school shooting survivors, and I have met a lot of school shooting survivors. I was born after Columbine, just to age myself a little bit. I was 11 years old when the Aurora shooting happened. I experienced, the Vegas shooting was only a little bit before the shooting at our high school. And that was a very interesting one to learn about because the survivors from Vegas were not very tight-knit a community. It was a lot of people visiting from out of town for a concert. And we learned very little about that shooter. We learned alarmingly little about that shooter who was somehow able to murder, I believe, over 40 people from an extremely high vantage point with a gun, where that is a very challenging thing to do. And we just didn't learn much. But I had a bit of a political upbringing just because my parents raised me watching Jon Stewart and stuff like that. So I had an understanding when my younger brother and I were hiding in a classroom from the shooting, unaware of where the shooter was, because we saw videos of the violence that were getting sent around. And I don't want to knock whoever designed Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, but every hallway looks exactly the same. The design left a bit to be desired. So we didn't know where this guy was. And while I was in the classroom that we were hiding in, one of my first thoughts was like, this is the direct result of the gun policy we have in this country. And that's what motivated me to invite a lot of my classmates to my house to start March for Our Lives. Was I knew the cameras were coming to Parkland. I remembered that from Sandy Hook. And I knew they were going to want to film us talking about how sad this was. But I said, no, we need to be pissed off. We need them to see that we know what this is about. This is about the guns. The same gun shows up at very many of these mass shootings, and we need to talk about it. We cannot let the cameras leave Parkland without as many of us as possible getting in front of them and saying, this is about the guns. They wanted to film us crying. I wanted them to show that we were not going to let the gun lobby get away with this. And that's what we dedicated a lot of our advocacy to. And honestly, over the years, my heart broke and I stopped believing that we could make a change, because we didn't get a lot of the things that we were advocating for. There were over like 300 gun laws that directly attributed our activism to how they got passed. And I don't want to act like there weren't victories. We thought we were going to get assault weapons ban. And I know that seems utterly fanciful given the country's relationship with guns looking back. But at the moment, we had so many people who we respected and admired telling us that we were going to be the ones to make the difference. And we believed them. And I let it break my heart, and I let it make me lose faith in the system, because the more and more we learned about the shooting, the more my classmates and I recognized that the shooting was not something that happened in spite of America. It was something that happened because of America. So we got involved. I gave up, and I gave up the fight. And then I spent some time touring communities around the country that had been affected by gun violence with Manuel Oliver, and his wife, Patricia, and their son, Joaquin, got murdered at our high school. And they have an empty bedroom in their house and an empty seat at their dinner table because they lost their whole world. They lost their son. They lost more than I could ever imagine losing. And they were still willing to fight. They were still willing to travel across the country to actually make a difference here. And if they, after losing what they lost, still had the fight in them, who am I to not keep trying? And then this genocide happens in Gaza. And at the time, when it first happened, I did not really understand the nature of the colonial violence that leads to something like this. I had been raised to think that Israel was just this really cool vacation destination where you get a free trip when you turn 18 and you get to get wasted and hang out with physically attractive IDF soldiers. So it took me time to learn the nature of this reality. But when it happened, I was so surprised that more and more people from the gun violence prevention community weren't standing up against this, because my adult life began with me calling for an end to mass violence being committed using weapons manufactured in the United States of America. And we were watching this on a much bigger scale. And I was like, how is it acceptable when children and adults, innocent people, are being slaughtered at my high school? But how is it, how is it unacceptable when that's happening, but it's acceptable when the people being killed are brown and Muslim? So right. That energized me a lot. And that was a big motivator for why I got involved with this race. Was I knew it was going to be a race where a lot of the candidates, due to the demographics in this district, wanted to just kind of get away with being like, oh no, what happens in Gaza is terrible. It's terrible that this is happening. We need a two-state solution and everything. And I was like, no, I have a platform. I have tools in my box where I can actually make a difference here. So I'm going to use every tool at my disposal to draw attention to a lot of different issues that a lot of people might not go as hard on, but this was a very meaningful one to me.
Yeah, and I want to get to your platform on that because I mean it's one of the best kind of most unambiguous and truthful analyses of what the Israeli project is actually looking like that I've seen on a candidate's website. I mean, I can't really think of one. Like you talk about it. I guess maybe we'll circle back then. You speak about Greater Israel and what the reality is and what the Netanyahu Israeli government is trying to do there. Can you explain a little bit about your platform and why it's not just ceasefire now? You chose to put a more comprehensive plan together about how you would tackle this if you were to get into Congress.
Well, we've had ceasefires, and look what those have done for us, right? The only way this is going to stop is if we stop financing it. And to the people in my district, the many people who are very pro-Israel, I say to them, there's nothing better for the state of Israel's survival as a state than us immediately putting our foot down and saying, you cannot commit this colonial violence anymore, because the state of Israel, after October 7th, had an amount of international goodwill that was like America after 9/11. The whole world stuck their neck out for the state of Israel. And it was as if the acts of violence that Israel had committed in the years leading up to this for decades, it was as if the Nakba didn't happen. It was treated like the state of Israel was almost like a young child who had been violated. And everybody was going out and saying, you guys are this angelic, beautiful spirit. And in the years since, they have called people who had been their allies for decades Hamas sympathizers because, France, Australia, Canada, they said that they would recognize a Palestinian state, which, by the way, has been the moderate position on this for decades. They have allies who are signaling something that is not necessarily as radical as Netanyahu and his entire government's agenda. And they're calling them terror sympathizers. And I'm like, hey, Israel, this is not helping you. This is actually putting you at risk even further. Every single bomb you drop, every single sniper bullet that you send into the skull and chest of a young child waiting in line for water, and that's not an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. This is something that's been reported on by the UN. Like, all of this is radicalizing more people, and the next 100+ years of violent Jew hate is going to be directly attributed to the actions that the state of Israel has taken, the genocidal actions since October 7th. As for Greater Israel, when I first heard about it, it sounded like an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. At this point, I'd already taken a very pro-Palestine stance, but I heard some people talking about Greater Israel, and I was like, yeah, this is something that the neo-Nazis online would talk about. But then it's like, no, it's something that Netanyahu says he has a spiritual connection to, and it's something that is in the charter from 1977 of Netanyahu's Likud party. There's this thing I've noticed about the state of Israel where there are a lot of things said about their agenda that sound like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, but then you look and it's like, no, this is a direct quote from one of their parliamentarians. Like, I get called an anti-Semite for directly quoting the Israeli government. I'm like, hey, respectfully, I'm quoting people. I'm not making shit up. I am just saying what the state of Israel's government, what elected leaders there are saying. So look, this is a district where a lot of people in the political consulting class will tell me it's political suicide to assume the positions that I assume. But as we saw in Zoran's victory, I know people who are Zionist Jews who went and voted for him, not because they agreed with him on Israel, but because they connected with the fact that this is somebody who is speaking on principle and on their own moral convictions. And I do believe voters respond to individuals who mean what they say and say what they mean. And I do not believe you can manufacture authenticity. I confess, I do need to manufacture a sense of seriousness, given that I'm a 25-year-old who makes podcasts with woke neocons at the Bulwark. But so I do need to show people that I can be a serious adult, and that is a gap I need to close, and that is something I'm very dedicated to. But I am an authentic person. I speak from my heart, and I'm happy to assume positions and communicate these positions that are not necessarily politically expedient. When I talk about abolishing private prisons, that's not something that voters in New York's 12th Congressional District, one of the richest districts in the country, are thinking about. That's not something that is going to gain me political points. But what I do believe is that if I talk about the things that are emotionally important to me and morally compel me as a human being, that will connect with people.
Right. I mean, talk a little bit more about some of your other positions. I mean, you're a Medicare for All guy, for example. That's really exciting. Tell us about that.
Okay, my hot take, if I can be real with everybody, is that that's the moderate position at this point. Like with what RFK Jr. and Donald Trump are doing to our public health system, our ability to tackle public health crises, we are going to see generations of harm done to the safety of Americans. And right now there is a jobs crisis that is making it so my generation that is graduating with student debt is not going to have entry-level jobs that put them on a path to get any decent benefits. So when they turn, 26 years old and get off their parents' insurance plan, God forbid there's an accident or they come down with some sort of terrible illness, their financial future can be ruined. Right now, people are in harm's way because of the Trump administration, because of the fact that their healthcare, the healthcare that they do have, the premiums are skyrocketing. And we can afford it. That's one of the first things you see on my website, which I encourage people to go to. And please donate to me because my opponents are loaded, by the way. And also look at my policy positions because I am, at least of the candidates that are getting a lot of media attention, the only one with a full list of comprehensive policies. I don't know.
Yeah, let's get to that in a sec. Yeah.
My opponents are not very forthcoming about their policy positions. But like, I encourage people to go read more about this and my position on this on my website, but like, we can afford it. That's what it says on my website. Kasky for Congress, we can afford it. I say this in my ad. I say this in my release. We can afford giving ballistic missiles to ICE, the secret police force. We can afford mass AI surveillance contracts for Palantir that are going to be used to target Americans who are using their First Amendment rights. And we can afford an endless check for a genocide overseas. But we can't afford Medicare, which, by the way, has been proven by reputable economists to save us money. I think that that is insane. So Medicare for All is what I would consider my primary issue, just because it's the most common sense one. And there's issues that I'm going to be talking about a bit more because I believe that the vast majority, if not all of my opponents, are not going to be taking what I consider a principled stance on these positions. But Medicare for All, the pie in the sky dream that it was painted as for so long, it's like, no, this is the first thing we should be doing. And by the way, all Americans think this. It is the most popular policy position by any metric in the country, including with Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, it's very common sense. You even see, I would say, some Democrats trying to say like, oh, well, Medicare expansion now down to 50, and they've moved.
It's like talking about reforming ICE and not abolishing ICE. It's like, this is something that can't be reformed.
You're also an abolish ICE guy, which I greatly appreciate as well. But I mean, the other candidates that are in this field. This is just insanely crowded, obviously, as you know. I mean, I think that you staking out these clear policy viewpoints is probably actually a benefit to you more than traditional pundits would probably say, given the fact that this district in New York is wealthier and went a little bit more towards Cuomo than other areas of New York, which maybe you can respond to as well. But you're running against a few different people, but notably it's this influencer Jack Schlossberg, who is JFK's grandson, and he has no policy positions on his site. My last check, seems like almost like a joke. I don't really understand what this is about, but in this kind of crowded field, with you being so policy heavy, what's your reaction to that? And do you see your policy platform as a bit of a benefit in that way?
Well, I can't speak on Jack because I don't know what his positions are yet, and I will happily talk about my opponents as I know what their positions are. But until I'm familiar with what my opponents are running on, I can't say anything. There's a chance all of my opponents release all of their positions and they look identical to me, and that's terrific. And I'm like, great, go for it, gang. But until I know what my opponents believe in, I can't really speak to that because if there's a situation where I do not see a path to victory in the future, I am not too egotistical a person to drop out and endorse the person who shares my values and has the best chance at winning. So that's a possibility. But I do think that I can win. And I do think policy is how I'm going to do it, because I can't run on my identity. Like, I'm a school shooting survivor who grew up in South Florida, visiting New York for my family, and moved here a couple years ago. But, and like, you know, I'm not Lyndon B. Johnson's grandson, so I can't exactly run on that. But I do believe that policy is how we're going to win. And I'm going to let people in on, I don't think I've actually said this in an interview yet, so I guess we can.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. Do you know how Dan Goldman won in New York 10 in 2022? There was redistricting.
Yep. It was It was vote splitting. It was my district. Is my district.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew you were in the city because I saw you from afar at the Zoran event in Queens where Bernie and AOC came out.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Jeff Colton, the Politico reporter for New York, about that City Desk NYC AI bot on Twitter that seems to be very politically confused because it's always talking shit about Zoran. And sometimes it'll be pro Cuomo and sometimes it'll be pro Adams, but sometimes it'll talk shit about one of the two of them and be pro Curtis. And I think it just doesn't know what it believes. I think whoever programmed it just made it anti-Zoran, but it's
politically homeless.
It's a politically confused AI bot. And I think that there's got to be some sort of comedy film about something like that. Perhaps it gets a robot body and it's like the movie Her, where somebody falls in love with it. But
yeah, that came a little too prescient. But yes, no, it was vote splitting, and it was it was right.
On my campaign team, we call our strategy the reverse Goldman, and we're putting out a video about this soon. But it's such a crowded field. I mean, there's practically more candidates in this field than there are voters in the district, and it's a very populated district. As a matter of fact, I believe one of my fellow Bulwark contributors, George Conway, is joining as well. And I love that. It's the Bulwark primary. Like, I fucking dare Midas Touch to have something like that. But I think that we're in this position where not only are a lot of moderates, or at least like moderates who frame themselves as progressive or whatever, like I think the people with moderate positions are just like pouring into this race. And it's putting this in a situation where there's a chance, and a very high chance, that the winner of this wins with like 18%, even possibly less. So that's why I'm putting out a video soon, inviting more people to join this race, because the more people who join this race and do not take my leftist, democratic socialist perspectives on these things, that just makes it easier for me to win, because if this were ranked choice, I would be completely screwed.
Yeah.
But it's not. And these people, and the thing that is most important to recognize is that I am not going to be smeared the way that Zoran was smeared. So I do find it hard to believe there will be a substantial amount of these moderates who are going to drop out towards the end to coalesce against me. I think that everybody is underestimating me, and I'm counting on them underestimating me so they can attack each other while I just kind of vibe out. But like, people keep joining the race and they have so much money. I really got to hand it to specifically who I believe to be the front runners: Michael Asher, Alex Borez, who's very handsome, and Eric Botcher. They're loaded. Like, they all have over $500,000. I cannot say the same. I don't have that many rich people I can call up who would not immediately hang up when they ask my position on Israel. But these guys have so much money. And when you're in politics, you get surrounded by these yes men. And this is something you saw with Joe Biden's inner circle, where Joe Biden was just surrounded by people who were like, no, you're actually sharp as a knife, Joe. You shouldn't drop out, Joe. Whether or not you're being smeared in the media as somebody who is showing very clear signs of dementia, you're actually like still good. You're basically like the Gen Z candidate. People get surrounded by individuals who are constantly reinforcing them and telling them what they want to hear. And that is why I'm trying to fill my inner circle with fucking haters who are always talking shit to me. I'll have people online who are saying positive things. I need people who are going to tell me what I don't want to hear. And I think that because my opponents have so much money in the bank, and because they are undoubtedly going to be surrounded by people who encourage them to stay in the race and tell them they could totally win, I can kind of coast in I identify as a democratic socialist. I'm a dues-paying DSA member. I highly doubt I'll get the DSA endorsement because I don't see any incentive for DSA to get involved with this race. If I were DSA, I would not throw my hat in for this. And like, I have a friendly relationship with DSA. We're in good touch. We chat about it. I'm planning on working with a DSA assembly candidate who is running in this district and kind of teaming up and hopefully using my platform to support him. And that's great. But like, there are enough voters in this district on that alone, and enough young people who are excited about a young person, enough older people who are excited about the promise of a future for a party that kind of seems like it's limping to the finish line on its dying legs, and enough older Jewish grandmas who see me as like the type of nice Jewish boy with whom they would want to set up their granddaughter, that I could win. And I am kind of counting on it. And I'm also counting on my opponents to continue being like, no, the 25-year-old podcaster who not only didn't graduate college, he also didn't technically graduate high school either. Like, he doesn't stand a chance. Keep thinking that, everybody. And get ready for the fucking Bulwark primary, baby. I'm trying to convince Tim Miller to carpetbag and run as well. And we'll just have to see.
All right. Well, most importantly, though, I don't want this to just be a softball. Will you denounce Hassan Piker?
I've already aggressively denounced Hassan Piker.
Oh, thank God.
Hassan Piker, who has been very much an older brother figure in my life and has stuck his neck out for me and has always been there for me whenever I've needed anything. He's a rotten piece of shit, and I would never get behind somebody who is so morally despicable. And I will confess something, though. I do harbor resentment towards Hassan, and I've said this to him sitting directly next to him on his stream. I have had, I don't want to tell you how many, but multiple girlfriends who, while we were dating, were like thirsting on Hassan. And I was like, okay, like, I agree. He's a very attractive man. And, I get it. Hassan is very hot. But like, then why are you dating me? What about this scratches the itch of somebody who finds Hassan Piker hot? Hassan Piker is like the Giga Chad, like muscular, tall, like chiseled guy. And I'm totally fine with how I'm confident in my appearance. I've got a smidge of body dysmorphia, but nothing that's particularly bad. Like, I'm fine with how I look. Like, people seem to appreciate how I look in one way or another, but I'm no Hassan Piker. I'm like a little brunette twink who has pale skin and doesn't work out.
You're verging on complimenting him now. You realize this was a denouncement, right, Cameron?
I do denounce him. I denounce him because, not for his positions. He said some things that I would never say. He said some things I disagree with. We don't have the same policies and positions on everything, but that's the human experience. There's plenty of people with whom I don't have the same positions. But ultimately, I denounce the fact that I've had to sit there, and I'm not a jealous man, by the way. I'm not an inherently jealous person. I think that I don't like to be possessive. I think that it's healthy to tell your partner that you think somebody else is attractive. What, when you get in a monogamous relationship, does that magically make you find nobody else except for your partner in the world attractive? Like, it's a healthy form of communication. But it's just, I've heard it so many goddamn times about Hassan that I think my litmus test for the next person that I date is going to be like, okay, are you cool with the fact that I am like a pale brunette twink? Because if not, I don't know what to tell you. That's not changing anytime soon.
All right. Well, I'm glad that at the very least that you denounced Hassan and that you're not getting behind him, of course, because we know now that he would hide you completely given his stature versus yours. So you can't get behind him literally in the physical sense. I'm workshopping this joke. Cameron Kasky. Check out his website. We will put a link down below in the video and YouTube descriptions if people want to support your campaign. Really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks so much.
I'm thrilled. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. With that, folks, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program and head into the fun half where we will take your calls, read your IMs. Sorry, Cameron. I don't know if we can hear you anymore, by the way, because you're off. I can hear you, though. We're going to head into the fun half. Emma's Gambling Earnings says first congressperson to describe himself as a twink. I also appreciated
the radical honesty of if there was ranked choice voting, I wouldn't have a chance.
He does benefit from the field being crowded like this.
More moderates join.
Yes.
That's kind of how like Zoran shot up, is all the Eric Adams Cuomo stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, also, kind of too. We need to be talking too about like more kind of a national push for matching funds. I'm still convinced too that is. I know this is a bit of an aside, but how Zoran was able to elevate himself throughout that primary, we should have that kind of support from more progressive candidates around the country who want to combat big money. Matt, what's happening on your Jackman show, Left Reckoning, etc.?
Yeah, Jackman show will be another show at 10 o'clock Eastern on Friday with Brendan James talking about Dick Cheney croaking and Errol Musk being just like Elon, and also Robin Wansley talking about starting a socialist caucus in Minnesota. So these squish progressives like Tim Walz don't get credit for all the progressive stuff that happens because the socialists are on city council and they ride it to national prominence and then fall on their ass for a genocide. So look forward to that on Friday, and we had a Left Reckoning too.
All right. And I think we have our friends there. Seamless. Unmute both of you. Hello?
I'm not saying
Hello.
Oh, you're not
How
muted.
are you?
You're not muted. What's up, guys? How are you?
Doing good.
doing fine.
Good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Haven't seen you in a minute. Binder, what's happening on your shows and stuff?
Yeah, sure. Tune in. I'm make it simple. Tune in tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/Matt Binder for a episode of Leftist Mafia with the crew. So tune in.
Tune in. Brandon, what's happening on the discourse?
Well, we are rapidly approaching the 10,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. We're so close. And that's why I will not be streaming for the next few days because I'll be away. Well, I mean, I might stream, but I will be away, so don't expect to stream. But when we get back, I think we're going to start delving into the new wave of Thomas Matthew Crooks conspiracies. In case you forgot, he was the first person who tried to kill Donald Trump. And recently Tucker Carlson has reignited conspiracies about him possibly being like an MK Ultra furry. So we'll probably be delving into that a little bit deeper when I get back from my trip. But yeah, check out the discourse with Brandon on YouTube, on Twitch, remote view it from wherever you are located, the Antarctic Nazi base, even,
Remote view it, like meaning don't come to you in person and say stream for me personally.
No. Remote viewing is when you astral project yourself to the location to watch the thing happen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Somebody hasn't read The Men Who Stare at Goats.
I thought that was just like teleporting or what they do in Star Wars.
No, this is.
That would be
Oh.
Yeah, focus really hard on if I focus really hard on Osama bin Laden, I can picture where he is at this exact moment, and then you can send SEAL Team 6 in.
Men who stare
clairvoyance
stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Or you're also just manifesting. It's
pretty much the military-industrial version of manifesting.
Okay, well,
it's like the ultimate level of reactionary thinking. Where you imagine that if you just think hard enough about anything, it's true now. You were there. It's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
I look forward to checking that out, Brandon, and we will see you guys in the fun half. Anything else we need to plug before we head in? Am I forgetting anything? I don't think so.
Open conversation is the way of humans connecting.
Gosh, who is that again?
Jim Brewer.
Jim Brewer. All right. We will take your calls, read your IMs in the fun half. See you there.